In 1970, Toronto almost built a city on the lake, not beside it, but on it. 1,000 acres of brand new islands, canals instead of streets, stacked townhouses instead of towers. A human-scaled city where cars were optional and waterfront cafes lined pedestrian bridges. It was designed, engineered, and ready to go. But then, the plan was abandoned. How did Toronto's boldest idea, a floating city, simply vanish? This is the story of Toronto's Harbour City. By the 1960s, Toronto's waterfront was a shadow of its former industrial glory. Rail lines, shopping piers, and concrete silos lined the shore, symbols of a once thriving manufacturing hub. However, many industries that powered Toronto's growth in the first half of the century were moving out, relocating to cheaper suburbs, smaller towns, or even across borders. Others couldn't compete with mechanization or international competition, leaving their buildings abandoned, warehouses empty, and wharves unused. These abandoned sites, along with highway and rail corridors, cut the city off from the waterfront, creating a patchwork of underused land. At the same time, the city itself was booming. Toronto's population was exploding, fueled by post-war immigration, the baby boom, and a growing economy shifting from manufacturing to services and finance. By the mid-1960s, more than 50,000 people were arriving in the metropolitan area each year. Downtown housing was in short supply, suburbs were sprawling, and city planners were desperate to find solutions that could accommodate the population growth into the 1970s. With land downtown not being a viable option, as land was scarce and expensive, the idea arose: what if the city made land? There was one problem. The only place the city could make land near the downtown core was, well, underwater in Lake Ontario. But they had a plan: reclaim land from the lake itself, create islands, and build a city unlike anything North America had seen before. Toronto was lucky. Given the lake's characteristics, sand and silt carried by the rivers created shallow areas naturally suited for reclamation. And another famous site in the city served as the proof of concept. Ontario Place, opening in 1971, built on the lake, proved the technology worked. Engineers knew how to landfill efficiently, economically, and safely. An additional benefit to this idea was cost. Province planners calculated the price of $50,000 per acre, or just over $1,000 per planned home. Elsewhere in Toronto, that same land would cost 6 to 10 times more. For the first time, Toronto could build land, and with it, a city just minutes from downtown. The design of Harbour City was made by Eberhard Zeidler, the architect that designed Ontario Place and parts of Eaton Centre. The city would have been an entirely new urban landscape. 1,000 acres of man-made islands would occupy the waterfront, including Billy Bishop Toronto City's airport area. A ring road connected Harbour City to Bathurst and Strawn Streets, providing 2 entry points. But the design wasn't just infrastructure, it was a city for the people. Every street, every bridge, every walkway considered how residents would move, live, and gather. At the heart of Harbour City were its homes. Small buildings of up to 10 stories high with multiple modular apartments would be placed along the ring road and would be home to up to 60,000 people. Each home had dual identities. One side faced a canal, the other shared a green space. Children could play safely outside while parents watched from terraces above. These were homes designed for living, for community, for flexibility. Every corner revealed a new experience: a small plaza, a pedestrian bridge, a quiet courtyard. Canals replaced streets. Bridges replaced intersections. Cars were largely unnecessary. A resident could shop, commute, or meet friends entirely by walking, cycling, or water transport. Ferries and canoes connected neighborhoods in ways that felt natural, fluid, and integrated with the environment. The water from the lake wasn't just decoration. It was the organizing principle of the city. It shaped neighborhoods, created microclimates, and offered daily opportunities for recreation, reflection, and community. Harbour City was Toronto's Venetian dream, not imported from Italy, but built with Canadian ingenuity. Beyond architecture, Harbour City could be also considered a social experiment. The renowned urbanist Jane Jacobs, who lived in Toronto at the time, praised it because it challenged the conventional separation of a city: work versus home, young versus old, rich versus poor. Due to its modular construction, residential units could become shops, small offices, classrooms, or restaurants over time. Streets and canals encouraged interaction. Plazas and parks were shared spaces for all. This was a city where social mixing was built into the design. People with very distinct financial background could live side by side. Children of different ages could play together safely, and people could age in place, moving through different housing types as their needs changed. Jacobs called it one of the most important advances in city planning in the century. For her, Harbour City wasn't just an idea, it was proof that a city could be built around human experience, not cars, not concrete, not separation. Yet, not everyone shared this enthusiasm. Critics raised concerns: environmental impacts of boat traffic, fears of water pollution, and the worry that Harbour City residents would overwhelm existing Toronto Island parks. Technical questions also arose. How would the city manage sewage, land ownership, and governance? Another big project, the Spadina Expressway, a massive highway planned to cut through the city, had ignited public backlash. The province was reluctant to risk another confrontation. By 1972, Premier Bill Davis quietly shelved Harbour City. The floating city that could have transformed Toronto vanished, almost without a trace. Truthfully, there is no way of knowing how Harbour City would have impacted Toronto. On one hand, the abandonment of Harbour City meant losing a vision of a human-scale, high-density living community decades ahead of its time. The city, which still had to look for a solution for its housing shortage, picked condos as the best residential development option, the polar opposite of what Harbour City proposed. However, the concerns raised by critics were very pertinent and would require the government and planners to think a little bit better, which they sometimes don't do. If successful, Harbour City could have been a blueprint for cities worldwide, an early example of sustainable, walkable urbanism seamlessly integrated with the waterfront. Regardless, Harbour City represents Toronto at its boldest, willing to dream, willing to build, willing to reclaim land and imagination alike. Perhaps Toronto would have been a different city, denser, more vibrant, more playful, more alive. And we can only ask ourselves, what could have been if we dared to build it? If you like this type of content and would like to learn more about the environment that surrounds us, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to this channel. And stay tuned for more!